What is sacred sexuality or yoni joy? Sacred sexuality is the exploration of self-discovery, self-psychology, self-knowledge. It is a practice of activating the fullness of our creative energy in the mind, in the heart, in the navel. When we activate the creative energy in the mind, it is a pituitary adjustment that is occurring during sex, during yoga, or during deep meditation. And that pituitary adjustment in the brain unlocks the mind, opens the mind to higher imagination, innovative, inventive quality of the mind that has clarity and therefore light bulb ideas, and creates a meditative state or a neutral state that brings ease, deep ease to one's life. Creative energy at the heart is self-worth. When we are participating in yoga or deep meditation or even Hawaiian dance or playing the piano, or when we're having a sex with someone that we have a sincere connection with, it raises our self-worth and provides us emotional maturity. That's where we are stepping into our soulful philosophy. When you experience a sincere sexual encounter, there is this soulful philosophy that develops, where you start to get more in touch with yourself. Just naturally, you become more sensitized, and therefore you get to experience emotional release and emotional transmutation that leads to transformation. That is taking this, we all experience the emotions when we have sex. Emotions come up, memories of past relationships, of childhood, these come up. And through the creative pathway, that is what sex is, we're able to transmute those emotions that may be immature or may be misunderstood, or emotions that may be difficult to deal with, that we could have some sort of emotional blocks regarding a trauma when it comes to our childhood or past relationship, a heavy judgment. Through the compassion that is the soulful philosophy, compassion, acceptance of ourselves, we're able to transmute and transform. And that's when we experience self-worth. A lot of people in a sincere sexual encounter experience the raising of self-worth because their emotions are being transformed. Their emotions are being transformed. They're becoming more emotionally grounded and emotionally purified by the creative energy that is stirred up through the sexual encounter or yoga or deep meditation or Hawaiian dance or playing the piano. There's various forms of sacred sexuality that is not just penetrative sex. And in having that emotional awakening that leads to emotional transmutation for transformation, where we start to feel I'm more in touch with myself. I feel more emotionally grounded. I feel emotionally soothed by this sexual encounter. I feel emotionally soothed. That's when we really can come out, because What does not feel safe does not move. And we must feel safe in our heart energy before we can really move passionately, enthusiastically in a sexual encounter. So when we feel emotionally soothed by that creative energy that stirs up the emotions, and we transmute them through our affirmation that doesn't have to be verbal, it can be a non-verbal affirmation, is I accept you for who you are. We transform those emotions into emotional maturity, a sort of soulful philosophy where sex, you should feel naturally more soulful and philosophical during and after. And then creative energy at the navel. The navel has to do with balancing the life force, which sex, balance, yoga, deep meditation, Hawaiian dance, playing the piano, actual penetrative sex, all of that balances the life force. It harmonizes, it equalizes the life force, and we feel good. We feel good about ourselves. When the navel is imbalanced or when the navel is wanky, our self-esteem tends to be low. We don't feel stable. We don't feel secure in who we are. We don't trust ourselves. And therefore, when we don't trust ourselves, intimacy becomes confusing to us, something that we are unsure of, something that we kind of play around with, but don't really fully get involved in intimacy, which is simply about friendship, befriending your own soul, and then choosing to commit to a partnership with someone that is in partnership with your destiny, your creative destiny, who's in support of your soul, who's in support of your spiritual and creative fulfillment. And when we feel that balance, that harmonization, that equalization of the navel, where we feel very secure, we feel very stable after sex, during sex, even when we're doing yoga or deep meditation, we tend to be more creatively ambitious, big and bold, more creatively expansive. Just like the wider the hips, the more chance of that woman is to give birth. The wider the hips, the more abundant she is in the giving birth. So when we experience the balancing of the navel, we're experiencing bold, big, expansive, creative potential that is not just something we're caging inside of ourselves because we have some kind of shrinkage or imbalance in our navel that causes us to insecure or feel unstable to actually participate or pursue or to get involved. When we feel that sort of stability, when we feel that sort of equalization, harmonization, balance of the lower body, the lower chakra energy, we naturally have the enthusiasm to move forward in a big way, in a big creative way. Sacred sexuality is about spiritual and creative fulfillment. Either that is you in Hawaiian dance, you playing the piano, you in yoga, you and deep meditation. Overall, it's about raising of Kundalini. Raising of Kundalini is simply the fullness of your creative energy being expressed, being used, and being developed. And when we are raising the Kundalini and getting in touch with the fullness of the creative energy, the mind has divine inspiration. That's where people are very prolific writers. For example, during virtues is one, prolific writers. Just one sort of category of many divine inspiration that's very prolific, because the mind, the pituitary adjustment is constant. The pituitary gland is secreting because the Kundalini is rising. Divine inspiration. You are receptive, you are intuitive, you are connecting with higher potential. And then the creative energy we experience at that heart is the self-worth, the emotional maturity, the soulful philosophy that gives you this sort of wisdom. And then the navel point is having that stability within yourself to go for it, to make it happen, to believe in yourself. And all of that provides us this creative fulfillment. And we experience that in our sexual encounter with a partner,